Hi everyone, welcome and welcome back. If this is your first time of stopping by, you're most definitely welcome into my space. Please remain there and be a part of our tutorial. So today's video will be on a shift dress with asymmetric neckline. If this is your area of interest, please watch this video to the end. So guys, let's get started, okay? The first thing to do, guys, is to draft a pattern, and to do this I'll be drafting the pattern directly on the fabric using a freehand method for this illustration. Okay, so as you can see, guys, I placed my fabric on a bias fold and I'll be cutting the front and the back together. The difference between the front and the back is the zip allowance, which we can clearly see on the pattern. Okay guys, so what I simply did was to place a neck width measurement, which is 3 inches. That was the first thing I marked, and the next thing I marked was the shoulder measurement, half the shoulder measurement, which is 7.5. And what I want to mark right now is the cut together sleeve, which is from the center front to where you want your sleeve length to stop. Okay, so it depends on choice. For me, I have the 15 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance, making it 16 inches. Okay, the next thing I'll simply do is to establish my shoulder slant. So from that point, I came down vertically by 1 inch, and then I'll connect it to the neck width measurement. Okay, the 3 inches neck width measurement, I'll be establishing the shoulder slant using the neck width. Okay, so I came down by 1 inch. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is to establish the armhole. Okay, so I'll be using the shoulder slant measurement from that point. I'm going to be marking 9 inches from there. Okay, so this is not a standard. It depends on how wide you want your sleeve to be. You could also do 10 inches, but I just want a moderate armhole, so I'll be working with 9 inches. So this is fine for me. So I went ahead to mark 9 inches there, and then I simply ascertained the accuracy of the width. Okay, so after doing that, I connected the 2 points together. Okay, I hope we understand to this point. Okay, so guys, having done this, the next thing I'll simply do is to place our vertical measurements. So from the shoulder line, I simply went ahead to mark the under bust measurement. Okay, so I won't be having any need for the bust line. So if I were to be using the bust line, my bust measurement is 11 inches, but I won't be making use of the bust measurement. So my under bust measurement is 14 inches. Okay guys, so this mark is for 14 inches, but I'll be adding additional half an inch seam allowance because I'll be closing the neckline. Okay, so by the time I close up the neckline, it will actually fall into place. Okay, so I marked 14.5 inch for the under bust. Okay, so I went ahead to mark short horizontal lines. So after marking these short horizontal lines, I'll link them up together to form a straight line. Okay, okay guys, so I'll be connecting the lines here, as you can see me doing right away. Yeah, so I think we're good here. So the next vertical measurement to take note of is the waistline. So the waist measurement is 16.5, but just like I briefly explained for the under bust, I'll go ahead and mark 16.5. Okay, so I'll be using a short horizontal line to also mark the waist measurement, and after marking it, I'll link up the lines together to form a straight line. So guys, the next thing I'll simply do is to add the seam allowance. So this seam allowance will be used to join the lower parts. Okay, and the seam allowance for the lower parts is 1 inch. So I went ahead to mark 1 inch, and then I linked up the short lines together just like I did for the other ones. Okay, so this is 1 inch seam allowance to attach the lower part, which is the skirt, to the upper part. Okay, so what I'll simply do next is to place a horizontal measurement. So guys, on the under bust line, I'll go ahead and mark and place the quarter of my bust circumference on the under bust line. Okay, please note, because I actually want it to be loose on that area. Okay, so no need placing your under bust measurement. So I simply placed my bust circumference, quarter of my bust circumference on the underbust. And then on the waistline, I marked the quarter of my waist circumference. So I went ahead to add 1 inch seam allowance on the underbust and the waistline. Okay, so the waist measurement, I also placed the waist measurement on the seam line. Okay, I just linked it up together. So I'll go ahead and connect these lines, as you can see, to the armhole. Okay, so I connected it to our sleeve opening. Okay, so having done this, I'll go ahead and cut out the pattern, but have in mind that I did not do anything on the neckline for now because it's an asymmetric neckline. So I'll just cut out the pattern first before having to work on the neckline. Okay, so before cutting out this pattern, it's best to secure it with a pin, okay, so that to stabilize the fabric together, since we're cutting the front and the back at the same time. Okay, so I'll just cut this out and then we'll proceed to the next step. Okay, so guys, this is what we have. This is the front and the back pattern. Okay, so I'll open this up and then I'll also open up the back pattern. So this is the front pattern and then this is the back. Okay, the back has the zipper allowance. So I'll open up the back pattern and this is the zipper allowance. Okay, so I simply secured it with a pin. Okay, so you can go ahead and run a basting stitch on your zip allowance and then open it up, but I secured it with a pin. So you can use a basting stitch, open it and give it a good press, but I simply secured mine with a pin and then I'll go ahead and open it up. So I'll use my scissors to open it up, so that at least in the course of drafting our neckline, we'll have that part well relaxed. Okay, so I'll just open up the zipper allowance properly and then I'll place the front pattern on it. Ensure that you place it very well. Make sure that it's well matched. Okay, so guys, have in mind that I actually marked my neckline and my shoulder line, if you remember, while drafting the pattern. Okay, so what I want to simply do is to notch it so that it will be on both sides. Okay, that is why I said you should place your front and your back pattern properly. So when I place it this way, I'll use my scissors and notch the neckline. You can see the neck measurement, which is what I use my chalk to highlight. You can see the neck. This is the neck measurement, the neck width rather. So I'll just notch it like so, and then also notch the shoulder line. This is the shoulder line, so I'll notch it also. Okay, so we're having it on both sides. So I'll simply use my chalk to highlight the neck measurement on the other side and the shoulder measurement as well, so you can see it's well highlighted. Okay, so what I'll simply do now is to start drafting the neckline pattern. So you can either do it on both sides, depends on your choice, you understand. So but I'll be drafting mine on this part. So I'll go ahead and draw a straight line indicating my shoulder line. So I'm assuming that this is the shoulder line down. You know, you establish your armhole using your shoulder line. So I'm assuming that this is my shoulder line drafted downwards. So from this line, I'll go ahead and mark 2.5 inches. So it depends on how off you want your off shoulder, but I guess at this point you need to be very careful so that you don't have something falling too off. Okay, so if you look at the thumbnail, you know that the off shoulder is a bit moderate. So from that point, the shoulder line, I went outwards by 1 inch. Okay, just 1 inch, and then I'll go ahead and link up this my 2.5 inches to the other side of the neckline. Okay, so this is the other side of, so I'm linking it up to the other neckline, the other points, the other part of the neckline on the other sides. Okay, so I'll just draw a straight line like this. Okay, and then I'll draw a curve from that 2.5 inches to the 1 inch mark upwards. I hope we understand. Okay, so guys, having done this, you can see that this straight line, if we draft out this pattern like this, it will be choky on the neckline. So what I simply did was I actually redrafted this neckline using the midpoint, the center front. Please take note, the center for the midpoint of my neckline. So from that point, I will just draft a curve and link it up to the 2.5 inches on the shoulder line. Okay, so it's just drafting it downward. You can come a bit downwards, I think it's safe, because I've actually done a trial on this. So this is okay, but if you want to come down a little bit more, you can. You're very safe to do that. It's very safe for you to do that. So guys, I've drafted the neckline for our dress, and this is what we have. So I'll go ahead and cut out the excess fabric on the neckline. Yeah, so we're good there. So guys, the next thing I'll simply do is to cut out the lower part. Okay, so as you can see, to cut this out, I actually place my fabric on fold, and I'll be cutting a 180-degree circle flare. So you can go ahead and do 360, that is cutting 180 into to make up for 360, but I just have this piece of fabric for this project. Okay, so the full length of the dress from the top to the bottom is 40 inches. The half length is 16 inches. So 14 minus 16, we have 24 inches. Okay, so I'll simply go ahead and determine the radius we'll be working with. Okay guys, so the waist measurement is 34 inches. Okay, so I'll be adding 1 inch for the zipper allowance. Okay, for the seam allowance. So 34 plus 1 will give 35 inches. So I'll be dividing 35 inches by 3.14. So 35 divided by 3.14 gave me 11.1. So approximately I'll be having 11 inches. Okay, so I have 11 inches. I'll be working with 11 inches as the radius. Okay, and then the full length, the length of the skirt is 24. I'll be adding 1 inch seam allowance, making it 25 inches. Okay, so guys, have in mind that we're working with a length of 25 inches and then a radius of 11 inches. Okay, so having placed my fabric on that fold, I'll go ahead and mark 11 inches here. Remember that I mentioned that we're using 180-degree flare for this project, and you can go ahead and draft 360 degree. You can go ahead and draft a 360-degree flare depending on the amount of fabric you're working with. So for me, I'll be working with 180 degrees flare for this project. Okay, so this is the radius of 11 inches, and from that point I'll be taking the remaining measurements, which is 25 inches. So from that point I'll go ahead and mark 25 inches. So I'll simply go ahead and mark 25 inches from that point. So this is 25 inches. Okay, so I'm trying to place in such a way that it will be convenient for me to take the measurement. So I've marked 25 inches, so I'll just take it round like so. I'll keep marking it till I get go round the entire length of the fabric. Okay, so make sure you mark your short lines in such a way that it will be easier for you to draft your curve. Okay, so having done this, I'll just link up the short lines, the short horizontal lines. I'll just link them up together and then I'll cut it out. So it's nothing so difficult. It's as simple as you can imagine. Okay, remember that the upper part is 11 inches, which is the radius, and from the radius, from that point I drafted the length, so you can see what we have. So I'll just go ahead and cut it out. It's as simple as this. So this is a 180-degree flare, and two of this will give you two of this with a different radius will give you 360. Okay, but this is 180 degree, covering the entire length of the waist. Okay, So guys, the next thing we'll simply do is to draft a facing for the neckline. Okay, so this piece of fabric measuring around 18 inches by width and then 6 inches by length, I just simply placed it underneath and I went ahead to draft the neckline on this piece of fabric. So as you can see, I'm trying to cut out the excess fabric. This is the facing for the front neckline. Okay, so it's an asymmetric neckline. You can actually cut your facing with your fabric unfold. Okay, so you have to really place it, open it up properly on your table. Okay, so this is the facing for the front. So I'll go ahead and also cut out the facing for the back. Okay, separately. I'm cutting out for one part, and then after drafting this part, I also draft out the other part. Okay, since the neckline is not symmetrical. Okay, so this is the facing for this part. Okay, so I'll just secure them together and then keep it separately. So I also go ahead and also draft the facing for the other side. So guys, you apply the same method. Just place your piece of fabric on underneath the pattern, and then you draft your neckline, and then you trim out the excess fabric. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. It's not a very difficult thing to achieve. So I will draft out this part, and then I'll also draft out the neckline, and then you cut out the excess fabric. So this is it guys, we're through with this part. Okay, so what I'll simply do is to take it to my sewing machine and then attach the facing to their respective parts. Okay, so this is the facing for the back, and then this is the zipper allowance. Okay, I just secured it here with a basting stitch because I want to close up the sides. Okay, but I actually placed the facing on them separately before having to join the both of them together with a basting stitch. Please take note. Okay, and then this is the facing for the front neckline. Okay, it's nothing so difficult. Okay, so I'm trying to flip it to the other side. This is the front part of the neckline. This is the front part of the dress, the upper part. So I will just place it on each other, right sides facing each other. Okay, so have in mind that I only secure the stitch on the neckline. So I'll go ahead and close up the shoulder. Okay, I'll close up the shoulder seam on both sides. Okay, so just watch my hands. I'm sure you know what I'm trying to explain. And then I also close up the side. Remember that the side seam is 1 inch. Okay, so I'll close up both sides and then we'll get to see what we have. So this is the dress. This is the upper part. I've closed up the side and this is what we have. And I've as well opened up the basting stitch. Okay, so I've opened up the basting stitch for the upper part. So it's open on the back side now. Okay, after closing the sides and the shoulder seam, I opened it up. So I'll simply go ahead and take an accurate measurement of the waist. Okay, so I'll just take this measurement simply because I want to get the midpoint. Okay, I just want to get the midpoints of the upper part. So I'll just simply fold. After getting the measurement, I'll fold my tape into 2 to get the midpoint. And then having done that, I'll place it on the top, the upper part, and then mark out the midpoints of this of the waist. Okay, so I'll use my chalk to highlight it and then notch it afterwards. So I'll just notch the point. So this is the midpoint. This is the center point of the upper part. And then for the waist, the lower parts with the lower skirts, I also go ahead and notch the center point because it's best to attach it, to place it this way. place the center point of the lower part, which is the skirt, on the center point of the upper part. Okay, so just match them properly. So I'll go ahead and open this up. As you can see me, I just simply opened up the skirt, and then I placed the upper part on its right sides facing each other. Okay, so right sides facing each other. I'll make sure that the center points match properly. You can go ahead and secure it with a pin. Okay, so having done this, I'll simply ensure that I place it properly, and then I'll take it to my sewing machine, and then I will join the upper part to the lower part by this 1 inch seam allowance. Remember that the seam allowance for joining is 1 inch. Okay, but ensure that you actually run this stitch with the center point placed on each other, and then I'll flip it open like so. Okay, haven't joined them. So ensure you relax your seam, because I actually highlight this all the time on all my tutorials, that you make sure you relax your seams after joining. Okay, so we have joined the upper part to the lower part. The next thing to do is to close up the hemline of the dress, and basically what I'm using for this project is a bias tape. You can go ahead and use a hemming gum, but I'm just so comfortable closing my hemline with a bias tape. A hemming gum is fine, just like I highlighted. Okay, so how do you achieve this? What you need to do is just to place your bias tape this way. Okay, so you place it on the front part, place it on the front like this, and turn it against the back. Okay, so and you run your stitch. When you place it on the front, you just run your stitch by 0.25, and you flip it to the other side, and you run your stitch. Alternatively, you can also place your bias tape at the back this way. You run your stitch by 0.25 inches, and then you flip it to the other side. So whichever one works for you is fine, depending on how you want your hemline to look like. If you flip it to the other side, you just have in mind that your bias tape will be in front. Okay, so having done this, I'll simply go ahead and attach the zipper and close up the seam, and then we're good to go with our dress. Okay, so let's get to see what we have.